Okay, so today's talk is about increase your productivity with Neovim language, protocol servers, and modern terminal tools. And yeah, let's jump right into it. I have a bunch of slides and a hopefully interesting demo. Maybe I need to turn it on again. Wait a moment. Oh, now it works. Okay. Short introduction to set the frame, what this talk is about and what it's not about. So I will give some tips and tricks about terminal user interfaces. So terminals is our natural user interface. As an HPC user, you usually don't have a graphical user interface. And for terminal user interfaces, there was some development, I would say, the last few years or decade maybe. Then some workflow suggestions and tools I recommend. And very important, this is really all based on personal preferences. So please take this as an inspiration to have some input and how to include this in your workflow and what is important to you, because everybody is different and you might have different requirements. And so please take this just as an inspiration and just pick what suits you best. So what I don't cover is I don't touch anything with VS Code and remote editing with VS Code. We are aware that a lot of people do that. So, and I know also in the group, probably a lot of people are doing that. But yeah, this is not covered here. Maybe hopefully we will have someday a talk on this specifically, but this is not covered. And I also don't go into detail about HPC specific things. I will cover how to set up the tools and what you need to do to make this work on our systems, because there are some issues you need to solve there. But because I don't do production and probably know a lot less than you about what is important, I don't dare to give you any tips about that. So this is not covered. So first of all, just personal UI preferences. And there you see typical IDEs like VS Code. The philosophy is everything is integrated. This originated from the Microsoft IDEs. Visual Studio was there for ages, I think since the 90s. And the idea is that you really never have to leave the IDE window. You stay in this window and everything you need is inside there. You have a terminal part, you have the Git connection, everything is integrated in this single window. And of course, lots of things are shown at once. I don't like that. So what I prefer is I only want to see what I'm currently working on. I call this the Unix way. I don't know if this is the right term, but I prefer that I have one view and I just see only one thing. And I don't like that I need to switch between things. And therefore, my preference is focus at one thing at a time. So no distraction. For example, also, I really tried. I know a lot of people have several monitors. Some have 3 of them. I tried it. Doesn't work for me. I always have then the urge to manage which window is where, and I need to manage then the monitors, and I hate it. I don't want this. I have one monitor, and that's it. So I always, maybe I'm a bit stupid or not, I don't know, but that's how I work. I don't want to have distraction. I don't want to manage the user interface. I shouldn't be urged to manage the user interface. And also not have the feeling to miss out on anything. If too many things are open, like that the mail window is visible while I edit, terrible. Because I always have to look there and things are happening and notifications, whatever. I couldn't do anything. That might be different for you. Maybe you are the person who can have 10 windows open and all digest at the same time. Congratulations, but it doesn't work for me. So they're just to set the frame how I prefer my environment. So another thing I'm not good at is remembering stuff. So I'm really bad at remembering complicated keystrokes, fancy commands. I can't do it. If I do not frequently use things, I instantly forget it. And as a consequence, my workflow and my tools have to be really simple. And I try to set up everything so simple that even I don't forget it. That's very important. Also in tools, what I always try is to have contextual help. That if I need something more advanced, which I don't remember because I don't use it frequent enough to use it, to remember it, then I want some help where I can quickly look it up. And you will see how this works out. And well, the best case, of course, would be to have an intuitive interface where all the common things I need to do on a daily basis are easy and simple to do. Of course, from time to time, you have things that are not that common. And then there is a pain limit. Like in an editor, sometimes I do complex stuff for, I don't know, like changing the header. And the usual drill is I start editing and at some point think, oh, okay, that's 30 more files. Maybe it's good to do something more fancy. And then I look it up and make a macro or something. Yeah? But there is a pain limit to it, yeah, until I start thinking, and that applies to anything. Yeah, when I repeat stuff and I try to start thinking, oh, maybe I could do this more effectively, then I search for something that I don't use frequently, but that may work out in this case. And of course, I don't introduce fancy things just because of it. I always want to have a real use case. Of course, you might ask, you will see I have a very fancy setup from the looks of it, but that's not the thing, because that I do once, like a fancy prompt. I don't have to think about the prompt. It's just there. I set it up one time and then I forget about it. I'm talking about the things I do on a daily basis, yeah, entering commands, doing things. Now some tips, and this is a bit unsorted everything, so excuse me. So we usually access the systems via Secure Shell, and those are just some tips, maybe you already use it, to make this more feasible and more comfortable. So for me, and I had a talk on Secure Shell, I think 2 years ago, the policy is no private key on a shared multi-user system. And how do I do that? I use proxy jump. The access to all systems that are not visible from outside, use proxy jump over the terminal host. Yeah? And I do this for all systems, and that works pretty well. And on all mobile systems, on all laptops, which could be stolen, I also don't have a private key. I have the key stored on the YubiKey. So the private key is stored on the YubiKey. If this is more secure, I don't know, but I do it. Then also, I don't have an agent running. Yeah, and you might think, oh, that's really long passphrases, complicated and so on. Well, if you have the key on the YubiKey, then it's usually secured by a relatively short pin. And then what I use is what is called in Secure Shell the control master feature with persistent Secure Shell sockets. It's a configuration option. You can see for options you can adapt it to your needs. And what this does is
this server mode. Some call that server mode. Is that something different?
I think that's something different. I think it's something different. What it does is it opens a persistent socket, and if you close the connection and you open the connection to the same host, you instantly are logged in because the socket is still there. The socket even persists if the laptop goes to sleep. Yeah, if you put the laptop to sleep, open it again, Secure Shell, instant access. It's of course handy if you do a lot of stuff repeatedly over Secure Shell. And I recommend that. I will have another solution to that, but that is what I have. Oh, I didn't say where I put this. This is in your config file in the Secure Shell directory. Yeah, so you put this at the top of the config file in the Secure Shell directory.
This is no substitute for using something like tmux, where you have a shell running that you connect to.
No persistence. It's just that the connection is hold. Yeah.
So your system, how does it work if I do something like tmux? So I have a tmux and several shell windows open, connecting from those windows to several other systems. Those also need private keys. Where do I put the private key?
I don't use tmux, and I will come to that why. Yeah.
You could use agent forwarding with tmux.
Yeah, but you shouldn't.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. So requirements for the terminal emulator. The terminal emulator, of course, is like the browser for web interfaces. It's a very important piece of software. And this has evolved over the years. So nowadays you have something like Unicode, so UTF, true color, bold italic fonts, text formatting, and all kind of other stuff. Even you can render images within a terminal window. And especially the UTF-8 fonts, there is something called nerd fonts, and this uses or abuses, depending on how you interpret that, UTF-8 fonts for icons, graphical elements, and this enables that you have a fancy graphical user interface in your terminal window. Yeah, you can really do advanced stuff, and it's very colorful, so it's really enjoyable. Yeah, this makes this fun to use. Then I come to why tmux in screen is a bad idea. Especially for those UTF-8 fonts and those advanced features, the problem with tmux is, first of all, it's unnecessary overhead because the functionality of tabs is also provided by almost every terminal. Yeah, and it is a complexity cascade because what you are maybe not aware about is everything is done in terms of escape codes. And those escape codes have to be parsed, interpreted. And what TMUX does is it parses, translates, and modifies them in an abstraction layer. Everything that you enter at the top goes through TMUX and then through the terminal emulator. And this causes all kinds of problems. Of course, it causes overhead, it's slower, and also a lot of things out of the box don't work. And therefore, I don't recommend it. I used TMUX for a while, but I now switched to using the standard tabs of the terminal emulator, and it's much better. Less problems, and yeah.
I never felt any of this to be a problem.
Yeah, because you don't use UTF-8 fonts. Yeah. The only useful feature of TMUX is remote persistence. That is what Georg talked about. So this is when you log in somewhere, you can detach from your session, you can log out, and the stuff runs. Yeah, and then you can log in again, and you can attach it. Works with sockets. Yeah, so you can attach again and then work as if nothing has happened. Yeah. This persistent functionality is also provided by standalone tools. So there is Spool, that's probably the option you should use at the moment, and Abduco. It's unfortunately not maintained anymore. I think last commit was 2017, but this Spool seems to be a candidate. I have to admit, I'll be honest to you, for persistence, I still use TMUX sometimes. Yeah.
Some people appreciate BioBoo because you don't have to remember.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. BioBoo is just a more fancy thing for TMUX, but has the same issues. Yeah, does the same things. Yeah. Okay. If you need TMUX, that's up to you. Yeah, but it has issues, and maybe you try it out without. Yeah. Apart from security issues that you shouldn't leave a TMUX session on a multi-user system. Now, terminal emulator. What I use, of course, there are several variants, and really there are really a lot of options that would work and can do everything I talk about today. But what I use is Kitty, and there are some reasons for that. If you're on Windows, then unfortunately I cannot help you. I think Alacrity works on Windows because I don't have a Windows system. I mean, I have one, but I only play games there. Yeah, so I can't say anything about Windows. I only have Mac, Linux, and BSD. Kitty works there, but unfortunately not on Windows. So it's very fast, GPU accelerated. Of course, a lot of other terminal emulators also do that. It's configured with a text file. You might think, why is this special? Yeah, a lot of other terminal emulators nowadays store the configuration in some kind of dbus magic registry. Yeah? So you have still a text file, and it has same defaults. There is really no need to set anything up. It's feature-rich, highly configurable. You can still really change anything. It's scriptable with Python. That's bad for me, but probably good for you. It has tabs. You have startup session layouts similar to TMUX if you need that. It is a very powerful font rendering engine. And now come the important features. It has what is called font overlays. What is meant by that? For a lot of stuff I talk about today, you need those nerd fonts. Those nerd fonts are huge UTF-8 font where certain font ranges are used for icons or graphical elements. And the usual option is that you patch your font. You mean you have your core font, and then you add those UTF-8 characters to it, making it very big. And when you switch to another font, you have to patch it again. And so your font files then are very big. What Kitty enables you to do, you have your core font. That's the one with the real characters in it. And then all the nerd font stuff, you can map on top of that, separate from the font file. And this allows you to switch the font, and the nerd fonts stay separate, so no need for font patching. Then it has a secure shell wrapper to propagate the term cap info. What is term cap? A terminal UI, a terminal user interface, can query the UI. What are the capabilities? Yeah, what escape codes does the terminal emulator understand? And this is all encapsulated in this term cap info. Now, if you log onto a system and you have your terminal locally, then of course the programs running remotely have no clue what your terminal can do or can't do. And what Kitty does, it has a secure shell wrapper, and this wrapper not only sets up also sockets, so you could also use it to have the socket feature, so the secure shell master, but it also propagates the term cap info, yeah, so relieving you from setting this up by hand, which is really handy. And then also, it's not perfect, but it solves some of this scroll back and copy and paste problems. Yeah, so it has a good scroll back functionality and copy and paste. Copy and paste remotely is still an issue. If you know a solution, please let me know. for example, in Vim, when you are in a remote session and you copy something, yeah, it's not available here. But I'm sure you can set it up somewhere. But I mean, copy and paste is still one of the hard problems in computer science. Then color schemes, very important choice. Yeah, color schemes. That's the reason why we do that. So motivation, your wife comes behind you, looks at your screen and tells you, what the heck are you doing? That's all rubberish. Yeah? It's all meaningless characters. But then what I can say, but look, it's at least nice colors. Yeah. So therefore, color schemes are really important. And good color schemes really support a lot of different applications. Yeah. There is a very good website, Vim Color Schemes, where you can have live preview on how this looks, and all the color schemes are there. So if you're into colors, and I tell you, it's much more fun to have a nice color scheme, yeah, then have a look there. The recommended color schemes are Capuchin and Tokyo Night. Those are those two. Those, what they call is soothing pastel colors. I hate pastel colors, yeah, but I have to admit, they have the best functionality. They have the best support, most features. And so I use that even if I hate the colors. Yeah. If I need to choose just on pure aesthetics, and that's my personal thing, yeah, I would choose either Nord or Kanagawa. Groovebox is also nice. But unfortunately, those two really stand out in terms of functionality. Yeah, but it's up to you. They all work kind of.
What do you mean by functionality in relation to
Yeah, for example, that in Neovim, all the plugins have coloring support, that different features are colored, yeah, that tools are colored. Like all the tools I have, that the color scheme supports those tools. Yeah.
color scheme has this?
And also the syntax highlighting, there are some color schemes that have a very, let's say, minimal syntax highlighting. And those here, they do, for example, that the comment is italic and you can configure it. This is what I mean. Yeah. If you need that, if this is important to you, it's up to you. Yeah. But you don't have to do anything. You just pick it and then you can see the difference. So now for the shell, one thing, I'm really far away from being a shell wizard. I'm really bad with the shell. Yeah. Therefore, I admire good tools in a good environment because I am usually not that good on the shell. So the standard shell, so why? There you see it. For anything more complex than a single shell command, and I still can't get how you can live with the bash syntax. It's beyond my imagination how you can live with that. It's terrible. So for anything that's more complicated than a single line standmate, I write a Perl script. Yeah, and probably you write a Python script. And so I don't need shell programming, to be honest. So the common options are bash and setshell. Bash is kind of the standard on Linux systems. On macOS, setshell is the standard shell. And I use Fish. Who has heard of Fish before? Yeah, there's some of you. Yeah. So what is this? It's a shell that is really targeted to be an interactive shell with lots of advanced features that don't need complicated setup. So it comes out of the box with a lot of nice features. It has built-in fast auto-completion and syntax highlighting, and honestly, just for that, I would use it. It has the same shell script syntax, as I said, irrelevant for me because I don't write shell scripts. And it comes with sane defaults. I can show you my config. I used setshell before, having a long config and everything. And here it's just 10 lines. You don't need to configure anything. Everything out of the box just works fine. Yeah. And it's fast. Yeah, that's also important. It's really fast. I mean, it's not a shell script, but on the command prompt, it's fast. So how to install tools? I don't know why Georg asked for it, but terminal tools are usually implemented, most of them, in either Rust or Golang. I can tell you why. Maybe there is an infrastructure for that. I don't know. Now you might ask, oh, on the HPC system, it's difficult to install tools. What should I do? First of all, and I tried that before this talk, you really can just download a binary usually and put it in your path. For most of the tools, that really usually works. There is one caveat, which I come to on the next slide. But even if you compile it, it's really simple. So I described here for Rust what you need to do. For Golang, it's really simple and very fast to install the tool chain locally. And then it's just a matter of cargo install or go install to install a tool. Yeah, and it will be downloaded, compiled, and installed. Usually works very well.
What do you mean by tool chain? The compiler?
The compiler, all tools, compiler, language, so everything. Yeah. So now, some NHR and FAU or cluster-specific nodes. So the problem we have on the cluster system is that it has an ancient operating system, yeah, and distribution. And this comes with a very old glibc. And the glibc is so old that when you download a binary, often it is not compatible with this older glibc. Some solve this by providing their own Moodle-based libc, not depending on the glibc. Others provide special builds that link against the older glibc, because of course there is a forward compatibility, but not a backward compatibility. Yeah. So how to solve this? For Neovim, you can download binary releases because Neovim is not installed on our systems. Vim is, Neovim isn't, but you can install a binary package. And here is the link. The Neovim community provides builds against older glibs, and this one works on our cluster. Yeah, so you can just throw the binary there and it will work on our clusters. Everything else built always on the cluster front end and link it against the old glibc. Then it will work on the clusters and on CS NHR, because that's a problem when you build you shouldn't build anything on CS NHR anyways, but if you build something there because there is a newer Ubuntu and then you try to run it on Fritz or on some other cluster, it will not work. To enable fish as a login shell, in case you like fish, you can first try it locally. There is the option in Kitty. In Kitty, you can provide the secureshell.conf where you can be host-based configuration, you can copy files on login and so on. And one thing you can also specify is what you want the login shell to be when you secure shell to a target system. Another thing in Fish, when you want to use Fish, is to use the modules. You may know we're using this modules interface to load different tool chains and applications and so on. And to use it, you have to source this special init file. Yeah? So modules is implemented in Tickle, so it's not shell specific. And when you load this file, it just works fine. For the tools I will describe, I put this in here. I come to that in a moment. It's really just a matter of this single line to enable them. No complicated configuration. Yeah, just those single lines. So some tools. Now the tools start, and the first tool I want to recommend, and this is something if you have multiple computers, like multiple laptops, a laptop and a desktop, maybe you have another desktop at work, and you want to track the differences, backup, track, synchronize configuration files, then you really should have a look at it. How this works, it stores your .dot files in a separate Git sandbox, it renames them, and you have templates which you can parameterize to handle differences between different machines. It supports password managers, so you can inject the passwords when you install the configuration file so that the passwords are not exposed to the Git repository. And it also optionally supports full file encryption. I used to do this by myself by having the home being a Git repository, but this comes with all kinds of problems. And then I switched to Jasmine, I don't know how it's pronounced, and it's really, really cool. Yeah, so if you are in need for something like that, if you want to track your configuration changes, want to document stuff, want to easily synchronize, then this is a good option. Another benefit of this is if you have a new machine, it's a single command to just download Jasmine, initialize all your .dot files, and you're good to go. Yeah, so to set up a new system, it's really easy with that. Then command prompt, there I recommend Starship. This is a Ruby-based tool. And what is nice is it's very, very fast. I have a really ancient computer. It's x86 with a Pentium M, and this works there really fast. So that's my benchmark. Yeah?
Sorry, I don't get it. What's a command prompt?
A command prompt is the thing here, what you see down here. So it's the information on the prompt.
And I can set that in Bash as well.
Yeah, you can set it, but it's static. And this is context. It's first of all, this is much faster than anything you can configure. For example, I used to do something similar in Z-Shell, and on an old computer, you realize how slow it is. Yeah, and this is very fast. Even on old computers, it's configurable. And what is most important, it shows information based on context. Yeah. So, for example, this here is only shown when you're logged in on the remote system, because when you're local, you don't want to know how the system is called. Yeah. Then all the toolchain version is only shown if you're in a project that actually uses those tools. Or here, this is the Git information. When you're in a Git repository, it shows the branch, but only then. Only if you're in the Git repository, it shows the branch. Then when you execute commands and they are longer than a few seconds, it will automatically show the time. So it has this context-sensitive information. You can configure it, and it's really handy. And it's no effort, It's no effort to install it. It's just a single line command, and it's nice. Yeah, I enjoy it. What I find it useful for, first of all, to see the status of the Git repository, to see in which branch I am, and to also have the toolchain versions. And honestly, the timer is also pretty handy. Yeah, so it's really some nice interface. To install is this single line, and to enable in the shell, and it's compatible. That's also nice. It's cross shell, so you can use it in Bash, set shell, in Fish. It will work everywhere. Then the second important thing is the shell history, aka the admin second brain. Probably a lot of admins, if you steal them their history, they would be completely lost. And there is a nice solution called Arduin. It stores the shell history in SQLite database, and this allows you to do more effective searches based on context. So it stores with the command the context in which directory did you use, on which host, and so on. And it also supports fuzzy search. Yeah, it has a nice user interface, really fast. You see context information like how long ago did you execute the program, optionally on which host. It supports sync shell history between multiple machines. I have to admit, I don't use that feature. He offers to do that on a central server as a service. He says it's fully end-to-end encrypted, but you can also self-host it, if you want it. But I wanted to set it up, but I kind of don't have a need for that, so I didn't set it up yet. But I think it's still a nice feature, to have a uniform history across a lot of machines. So next is fuzzy search everything. So what does it mean? So I'm a great proponent of fuzzy search. What is fuzzy search? You type characters, and there is a fuzzy algorithm that tries best effort to match strings. Yeah, if it can match a straight line word, fine. But if it doesn't find a straight line word, then it still tries to find at least the character somewhere. Yeah? And it will show you then live while you type the hits. And this is, I think, a very effective way to search for stuff. For example, I never scroll through a directory tree. I always use fuzzy search. Also in the editor, everything I do with fuzzy search. And FZF is some generic fuzzy finder. You pipe stuff into it. It has a user interface with a preview, and you can really create cool use cases for that. Like a lot of people search their bookmarks with that. You can search your secure shell hosts with simple shell scripts. So you can really great stuff. As I said, I don't do fancy things, but it's still nice. And I put here some graphical solutions if you're into that. So if you get to love this, then there are some options for the desktop to do this, for example, to select applications and so on. Now, a selection of basic Unix tools on steroids over the past few years. There were re-implementations of standard Unix tools with more functionality, faster, you name it, more colorful, of course, that's the important thing. And I just go through it. So first is LS, and there are several ones, but I use ETSA. I will show you. So what it provides, coloring and a lot more information. Then for set CD, there is Sockside. This remembers, and this is really a time saver, this remembers your most frequent directories and jumps with typing only a few characters. So usually you always go over and over again to the same directories. Yeah? And so you can do Z with just 3 characters or 4, press enter, and on best effort base, it will jump to this directory directly. You don't have to remember where exactly it is. This is, of course, helpful if you have a very deep directory hierarchy. Then for find, there is FD, which is a simple and fast alternative to find. Those tools are implemented in Rust, and I don't know how they do it, but they're insanely fast. So FD and ripgrab, it's incredible. Even if you have hundreds of thousands of files, this thing really rips through it. I think it's threaded. I don't know how they do it. They have to have some common library, but these Rust tools are really insanely fast. So ripgrab is the other thing, is a replacement for grab. So it does recursive search in directories for a regap pattern. It can, for example, acknowledge git ignore files and so on. And it's really nice for wrapping strings in source code trees. Then for top, there is btop, and this is actually a C++ tool. This is really an awesome resource monitor. If you search for a cool resource monitor for the terminal, this is really a very good choice. And finally, bat. This is a cat replacement, and I added here because a lot of the other tools will actually use FD, ripgrab, or bat as tools. Yeah, so to have those around is really helpful. And you can also configure BUT to be used as a colored man page view. Yeah, so making the man pages colored, yeah, so to say. So application classes I don't use in the terminal. Email. I tried it several times, just doesn't work for me. I don't know why, but just remembering the keystrokes is just inconvenient. Yeah? And then most emails nowadays are HTML or rich text, so it really doesn't really work. So I tried Neomat and Arc is the new kid on the block, yeah? But it just doesn't work for me. I use Apple Mail. I mean, you can, it works. Then file manager, that's really the hip thing. Yeah, as if you're a nerd, to have a file manager in the terminal, that's the thing to do. Also doesn't work for me. I tried it several times. I tried over and over again. It just doesn't work for me. I use a 2-pane GUI file manager. Then merge diff tools. Also, I use some graphical tool, Araxis Merge. If you don't know it, it's by far the best merge tool I've ever seen. It's really a small company. They only do this single tool, but it's really great. And password manager, I use
Meld.
Yeah, Meld is an option, but if you've once used this, you cannot go back. Password managers, I used to use GoPass for a while, similar to Pass, so where you store secrets in files and every single file is then encrypted using GPT, but it really was tedious. Yeah, alone the GPT setup, GNU-PG is just pain. Yeah, and now I switched to KeePass XC, and I don't regret it. Yeah, it was a good choice. Synchronization and backup, there is VBox, which is really bad. We all know that. But also iCloud is slow. It's really not usable for real-time stuff. What I use is SyncThing. SyncThing is continuous decentralized file synchronization, and it's really not used for sharing stuff, but for you, yeah, to sync files between computers. And it's really good at it. It's fully encrypted and authenticated. It works over the internet. You could have a server if you want, but you don't need to. It can also do peer-to-peer. It's very fast and very easy to set up. Yeah, it has a web interface. It runs as a daemon, as a web interface where you can configure multiple hosts you want to synchronize with. You configure your folders. You can have read-only or write-only folders. It's awesome. It's really awesome. Yeah, so you should give it a try. And it's fast, really fast. You copy the file in the same moment it's on the other machine. It's really good. For collision handling, sometimes collisions occur. And what it does then, it stores the file in different versions in the same directory. So it creates copies of the collisions. Yeah, and hopefully you can resolve it. And for backup, there is Restic. Some of you may already know that. That's a very fast and secure backup program. Also easy to use, supports a lot of targets. Most probably a very important target is S3. So you can have an S3 bucket and store a backup there encrypted. And it's very efficient incremental backup with deduplication. So duplicates are not stored separately. And if you are in need of any of this, really give it a try. Two very, very good tools. So even more tools. So we all use Git, and Git is kind of terrible, but you need a good user interface, and then it's actually almost fun to use it. Yeah, I use LazyGit. This is a terminal user interface, and it's really great. It clicks all the boxes for me, intuitive to use, context help, makes complex things easy to do. And yeah, it's just awesome. Yeah, really give it a try. I will showcase it. I need to speed up because otherwise you all will believe already. And another one is Zettelkasten. Who knows this Zettelkasten principle? Who knows Luhmann? Some of you.
It's basically note management system.
Yeah.
The name at the moment, but it was also this concept.
So Zettelkasten is basically you have small nodes and you link them. You link them with each other. And you can search them and you can have references to other nodes. And this enables this for your text editor. And it's implemented, you can tag them, and it's implemented using a language server. And then your editor connects to this language server. The actual nodes are stored as markdown files. But then all the fancy linking, creating the links is then done by this language server. If you are in search for something, I have to admit, I'm more the pen and paper person. So I really work mostly with pen and paper. I have it, but I hardly use it because it's just on the screen. I don't think the same when I do stuff on the screen, unfortunately. Now we come to the text editor, as you might know, for a software developer, text editor, most important tool. And some modern text editor features. I had a talk on Vim 1 year ago. Huh?
2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years ago. And there I talked about the basic stuff. You may want to have a look if you're into Vim. And what I want to show today is more modern text editor features, things you are used to from VS Code. So what is different in modern text editors? That's especially important for Georg. Auto completion. So while you type, you want to have completion things based on textual matches, on things offered by the language server, AI maybe, and on snippets. What are snippets? Like when you have in a programming language, you have repetitive patterns like a for or an if condition or a switch case. And then you just type some cases and it will offer you the snippet. You press enter. It will enter the snippet with placeholders and you can jump between the placeholders and fill the gaps. Then auto formatting and linting. So auto formatting is I don't want to hand format my program. I write it and then I save it. On save, it will be automatically formatted. A lot of languages come with that built in, like in Go, there is Go format. And if you are in C, C++, there is Clang format. Yeah, so I really recommend it. Don't do this by hand. Makes your code look more professional because it's uniform, and you also you don't have to think about it. You just save and it gets formatted. Yeah, so it relieves you about managing the formatting. Then is this magical language server protocol. So what is this about? This is something introduced by Microsoft actually. So it was specified by Microsoft. And it allows the text editor or any tool to communicate with this language server. And the language server has internal knowledge about, for example, the compiler. For C, C++, there is the Clang D language server, which has all the knowledge of the LLVM compiler. What is it useful for? Hopefully, I have still time for the demo now, but it's useful for navigation. You can jump to the definition, you can list references to a symbol and a lot more. So it's useful for quickly navigating code you don't know yet, especially when it's a complex code. Then information, you can show function prototypes and type information. It's like a documentation built in because the language server has access to all the headers and it knows all the prototypes. Faster feedback loop while editing, that's especially important for compiled languages. In the old days, you edited, then you compiled, then you had compile errors, and you edited again, and then was the drill. Then you had to run it, and then there were other errors, runtime errors, and then you had to go back. Now you have instant feedback, because while you type, the language server will inform you about errors and also about things that may be wrong. So there are, of course, 3 types. There is errors, so real errors. Then there are warnings. It might compile, but maybe it's not a good idea. And then there are hints, things nice to have, but not maybe a matter of taste. Yeah? And finally, it can help you with refactoring, so changing your code. So the language server can modify your code. It's called code actions. So sometimes like it has a hint, and then you can type a shortcut, and sometimes it offers you to fix it. Even more complex transformations. Yeah? And it can rename variables. I will also showcase that across files. That's all very useful. For example, if you have a variable or a function name, you can change the name, and the LSP knows all references to this function and will change all the references without you thinking. And this is not based on a textual matching, but really on the semantic. Yeah. Other features, snippets, I have talked about that. Then fuzzy search, that's one of the reasons why I don't use VS Code. I will showcase in the demo. In Neovim, the interface, if you want that, of course, you can set up Neovim to mimic VS Code, more or less. But I am a great proponent of this fuzzy search. I fuzzy search everything, and it's possible in Neovim. And integrated testing and debugging, there I'm honest with you, I do it in VS Code. If I need, it could be done in Neovim, but for some reason, I do it in VS Code. It's just, I can't say why. I have VS Code and sometimes I use it. So for Neovim, Configurim Neovim, you may know Neovim is a fork of Vim. And they have chosen that everything, all the plugins and the configuration is done in Lua. It's a embeddable scripting language. And to put it out straight, configuring Neovim is really tedious. Yeah, and especially because the plugins evolve, things change, so it requires constant attention. Yeah, and I don't have the time, and I also think it's a waste of time. And so what I recommend is use a maintained Neovim distribution. What is this? This is Neovim, a maintained Neovim setup, a ready-to-use configuration you just put there and someone maintains that with automatic updating. It uses a plugin manager, and what you can do there is incremental overrides. So LazyVim comes almost with, for me, a perfect setup. Yeah, there are some small things I want different, and it's really possible to tailor it to your preferences, yeah, easily without a lot of writing a lot of code. It also has a Mason package manager. What is Mason? That's basically a package manager for LSPs, formatters, and linters. So often your distribution only has very outdated versions. And similar to VS Code, what Mason does, it will manage, update, and install all those programs, yeah, build them, and so on. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on BSD, but it works on Linux and macOS. On top of the standard LazyVim configuration, I just use those 3 other plugins. Oil File Manager, I will show you in a moment what this is. Then already mentioned the set key NVim. This is this plugin for the settle custom nodes, and NVim auto pairs. Yeah, just for the sake of completion, I skip that. And now one complexity in the HPC programming languages, LSP, the Clang D, doesn't work out of the box. You have to do something. The reason is that in C++, the compiler works on a per file base. And of course, then all this jumping in a larger code base, it doesn't have the view about all files. So what you need to do is you need to provide the language server all the flags, the defines, the include paths, everything. Yeah. And to do that, you have to set up a compile database. It's compile._commands.json. If you use CMake, CMake has an option where this is created automatically. If you're not using CMake, there is this bear utility. You can build it on the cluster. I did it yesterday. And it generates the compile database, so this compile commands JSON from the build output. So you call your make call with this as a wrapper. It will pass the output and generate this compile database as a result. Yeah. I also looked it up. There is also a language server for Fortran, actually. I didn't try it, but it looks fancy. And of course, there is one for Python from Microsoft. Should I go over that? AI and programming. You heard the talk about the busy work. I have my own take. So the AI fanboys, we have some in our group. They say they're all in the other meetings, so I can really run now. They say programming is now a solved activity and the AI does it. Yeah, you don't have to think about it anymore. I think this is wrong, and the bubble is already bursting. My take is AI-based tools are just an additional puzzle, an additional tool you can use to get the job done, you as a software developer. It's nothing automatic, nothing magic. It's some additional tool you will use. Yeah. What is it used for? Common applications in the text editor. You have it as a snippet or as a completion source, as an additional completion source. So while you type, the AI will provide you possible completions. Yeah, I will show you what this can do. And this is a very good addition to what the language server can provide you, because AI can do things that the language server can't. Yeah? But on the other hand, then, when you paste the snippet, sometimes it's wrong because it's AI. But the language server will show you instantly if there are mistakes. So it's really a good match, yeah, those two. And then, of course, you have those AI chat interfaces. Who has ever used that already in a text editor while programming? You can give it a try. It's really nice. So actually what you have is in the text editor, you have a second window where you have a chat prompt and you can talk with it and you can ask it certain things. You can say, hey, how could I implement that like that and that? And then it offers you something. Can you also do it like that? And then things happen. And it works surprisingly well for smaller things. I wouldn't let it generate whole things, but for specific problems, it works. Very important. What I think a lot of people here don't understand, the underlying technology did not change through AI. It's still this software mess. It's still stored program computers. It's still this complexity nightmare. This is all not solved. And therefore, I don't believe that AI will do anything on this. Yeah. And you still have to understand how things are working. Yeah. I don't believe that AI will solve complex problems. And if it does, then by coincidence. So one thing I realized, and that kind of drove me to AI, is that web search has become really bad. I don't know why. you don't find anything anymore. It's just all commercial bullshit. And I can't tell you why. Is it because there is so much crap out there that the indexers just fail? Is it because Google decides we make our search worse and tune it only on commercial stuff because you want other people want to use our AI? I really don't know. But it's fact.
AI bots can generate websites and that optimize mostly on S.
Probably. I don't know. But fact is, web search has become really bad. And it's become more and more difficult to find useful information. And actually, AI chatbots are a lot faster to find stuff. Sometimes it's wrong. And I would even say frequently it's wrong, but it's still faster than using web search. I mean, we had the case with some configuration. The problem with the AI is it doesn't tell you when it's wrong. And it doesn't even tell you if it's not sure. It will always stand there. Okay, dude, I know what you want to know. And this is the answer. And it's plain wrong. Because if it would say, hey, look, I'm not so sure, but maybe, that would be a different thing. But I never heard an AI say, I'm not so sure. Yeah? This is something maybe for improvement. But still, AI is only effective as a tool if you can judge and validate the generated code. Yeah, this is very important. Okay, now, a lot of talking, almost an hour, and I try to speed up now, and hopefully you can see this. Wait a moment, let's stop the presentation. I still use my dark color scheme because even the bright color schemes are so low contrast that they are even worse to read because light gray on darker gray is just not good for people.
That's how young people love it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's terrible. I make this a bit bigger. Okay, so here first I log in and I use this. This is already Arduino, this search history. And I use this kitten thing. So the first thing about Arduino is when I do the up arrow, immediately this UI will open. And I can just type, yeah? And things will match. And then when I press enter, the command will be executed right away. So you save this extra step in selecting it and pressing enter. If you want to edit it, you can press tab and then you can edit it. Or if you just press it, it will be executed right away. Okay, I need to authenticate newly. Too long the talk. Okay, there we are. So now we are on Fritz and you see it looks exactly like on the local system. I see my username, secure shell session, and I'm on Fritz. And now we go with sock sites. So set, SP. And because I was there several times before, it knows where I want to go. Of course, it doesn't work, obviously, when you have directories that have all the same first 5 characters. That will not work. Yeah, but then maybe you rename some of them. Okay, there we are. I want to use this as a showcase. So first of all, ETSA, what is it about? You have first colored output. You have additional information, like for example, you have Git information. If it's a Git repository, you see that some of the files are modified or new. You see the data size in a readable format without using any additional flag. And we could do here this on data. It also colors according to the size, which is not bad, I think. Yeah. So that's that. Then we have to change something. So this is this fuzzy search with the preview. Yeah. So I just press, wait a moment, space, and I get this fuzzy search for the directory tree of my Git repository. And then I start typing. Yeah, and I get some hits. And that's much faster than by hand searching around, think about where is this file. I just start typing, and usually I find stuff very quick, especially because I have the preview, because I see instantly what it is about. So what we need to change, and this takes some time because we're on the cluster, but once it's loaded, then it's fast. We need to change the X-host because LLVM, believe it or not, doesn't know X-host. So let's delete that and start over. So the first thing we need to do, when I now open like the main file, and this is a C project, then you will see now there are some errors here. So Clang is already active, but he doesn't know certain stuff. For example, unknown type name matrix. Or let's see, there are further errors. Like here, the define is unknown. And this is because we didn't tell it what the flags were. Yeah, because all those things are provided on the command line. So what we need to do is, and here we also have our Arduino, we need to execute this beer command. Yeah, beer, then the make, the Q equals is because I usually hide the compilation information. So we type it, and then it doesn't build because we don't have the compiler loaded. So let's do that. There you see, I go back here because I'm not a fancy shell user. So that's it. And now hopefully this works. Yeah, that looks better. It still doesn't understand some of the stuff, but anyways, so there we go. Now let's have a look how this looks now. And now all the errors are gone. And Also, there you see now, of course, some benefits. It shows you, for example, how the argument is called. And it also shows you when there are if-defs, are there if-defs? Not here. So now let's start doing things. Like, for example, I search for com. The first plugin I really recommend is, because that's a common problem in Vim, is getting around in the file. Because yes, there are fancy things, but remember, I can't remember fancy shortcuts. So then what you end up with, you press a lot of keys to get around, yeah? And there is a very nice plugin called Flash. And what you do is you just press S, and then you start pressing characters. And it will highlight all possible matches. And like one is different color. When you want to do that, you just have to press enter. And if you want to some other, you press the character that is highlighted here, like H if you want to go there, G if you want to go there. So let's do that. Yeah, G, then we are there. And now you can jump to the definition with a shortcut. And then we are at the definition. We can see what are the references. So from where is the symbol called? I mean, of course, it's in the header, but also it's called at 2 different locations in the main file. So that is that. Now what we want to do is we open the com header. So what I usually do with MPI code is I put all MPI stuff in one compilation unit that enables me by stubbing to enable very simple also to compile a project without MPI. And what we want to do now is we want to rename. Here you see there is a com barrier wrapper for the MPI barrier, and I want to rename it. Yeah. So let's rename it. That's it. Let's save it. And now you will see this is the global view. Now the language server says that we call in comc and main C com barrier, which is not, it does not exist anymore. Yeah. So what can we do? I already told you there is the functionality to rename with the language server. So when I rename here and I open this, those are the buffers. And now you see the language server has also changed all the reference to the new name. Yeah. So that was that. Another thing I want to show you, to use it as a reference. Like, for example, the MPI broadcast, you may know in MPI you have the lengthy argument lists, and it's quite handy to see the prototype. You just press K and you get the prototype. What types are there and so on. And the same applies if you, for example, have a new function. Let's say you type here MPI. Now you see it will try to complete that. And it does that based on what is in the header. For example, now you can search for something send, and then you have here all the send variants. You pick the one you want. Let's take a vanilla search, and then you get the snippet where you can now jump from point to point and fill it out and know the type without looking at the documentation. Okay, that's actually what I wanted to show here. Now, another thing that I jump now here to the Golang code, and the reason is I want to show you an application of this AI, that you just have an impression what you can do with the AI. So same thing, it's just Go program. So let's go here. And in Go, by the way, another thing is also, of course, the LSP can show you all the symbols, yeah, in a file. Okay, so when we go here, you see in Golang, a struct is like a struct in C, and you have those magical comments, yeah, with attributes. And what this is used for is like when you convert this into a JSON document, then the converter automatically knows how to rename the stuff. And you can do the same thing for databases. Now, when you add something like here, now you see this is all AI. This is the symbol for AI. And the AI actually knows what to do to complete that. For example, it knows that the duration in the JSON is lowercase. Yeah? And it also will try to imagine something I want at the end of it. So I can press OK. And so this is an example where AI provides you with some useful defaults, and a standard LSP couldn't do that because it's a textual thing. And for example, if I would have here a DB field for database where I use underscores, yeah, what is it called? Camel case or no? I don't know. Snake case. It would do it. It can do it. Yeah, so that's some really useful application. Now, last but not least, I want to show you LazyGit. First of all, what do we see? You have the branch, you have the files, and per default, only the change files or new files are shown. Then you have the branches and the commit history. And there are a lot more things to talk about. Oh, one thing I didn't show, but yeah, maybe. One problem here is I have this cache claim D file, and this is obviously not in the git ignore file. And I don't know exactly what to do, so I try here to search git ignore and actually ignore or exclude file. E. Okay, let's try that. E. Add to git ignore, and there we go. That was nice. And then we see, of course, other stuff. We see here this is modified. You see live what is modified. You can pick changes. You can say, okay, this change, you know what? I didn't want to do that. So you can discard a change. And you can select what you want to commit. Like, let's pick that. Of course, the git ignore we want to add, and maybe also the make file. And now you can commit, do your commit, blah, blah. And there we go. Yeah, I didn't push it yet, but I could. I will not. But it's really a very convenient interface for me. Yeah, and you should give it a try. So last but not least is this context tab in Neovim. So Neovim, of course, has a lot of shortcuts. And as I mentioned, I cannot remember them. So what I do when I press a shortcut and I don't know how to continue, it will show me a context help and giving me possible continuations. Yeah, like C for code. Let's press that. And then you get further what you can do after that. Code action, rename, LSP info, and so on. Yeah? And so this is for me a very good way to figure out what I need to do next. Yeah? To have a context help, like a manual, interactive help manual. Yeah. So, and now last but not least, OIL, and then we are done. So what is OIL? It's a file manager. And you edit the files as you would with the editor. So renaming a file is like here. Let's write fork. Then I want to copy this one, go up, copy it. And then when I write, the stuff is persisted. Yeah? It asks me, do you really want to do that? Yes. And that's it.
Do you use the Vim style shortcuts for yank and copy and paste? Or
all of them. It's like you would edit a text file. It's all the commands in Neovim. Yeah? And it's a surprisingly elegant solution because I don't have to remember new shortcuts. It's like editing a text file. And I can do everything. I can delete and paste. I can copy. I can rename. A very efficient and easy way. I really love it. Yeah. And now when we go here, of course, we see here that there is this new file. Yeah.
Okay, so I knew vIdea, but that only works within a single directory. So I've used vIdea in the past.
Yeah.
But that only works like in a second.
So here, when you open that and you open it with minus, then minus, also the keystrokes are really elegant because they're so simple. So going up a directory is just pressing minus. Yeah. Then navigation is like with Vim, and entering a directory is just pressing enter. It's really simple. Yeah, and that's it. So I hope it was not too long. I hope something useful was shown, and give it a try. It's fun. Sometimes you have to sharpen your knife, so to say, but don't make it too complicated. I mean, I can say one thing. Computer scientists can spend their life on configuration. This is a real danger. So don't step into that, but still, it's fun. Thank you. And yeah.
So after all, you're de facto using an IDE.
Yeah, sure.
Because
But I only see one thing at a time. That's the difference. I don't have multiple stuff happening at the same time. I switch to it. Yeah, like when I search, I have the search window. When I'm in LazyGit, I only see Git. By the way, you can also have a terminal window in Neovim. I don't use it. I don't even know how to do it because I don't use it. But also I have to admit, LazyGit I frequently also use outside of Neovim. Yeah, so you can use it inside, but also separate.
There's a question in the chat from Maximilian. How do you distribute all the fancy tools to remote systems? This is the main reason I stick to the classics when not on my machine. They're already there everywhere. That's
right. You have to set up on time. I did it yesterday. It will take you, I would say, something like 30 to 60 minutes. The good thing,
if you practiced before.
No. I have the slide. So, okay, most of the tools, as I said, you just download the binary, throw the binary somewhere. I usually put it in .local/bin and set your path to it. Yeah, and that works for LazyGit. That works for SyncThing, for a lot of other tools. You really just throw the binary there. And it just works. You don't need to compile anything. That also works for Atwin. For some other tools, you have to build it. And you have to install the Rust toolchain one time. This is a matter of 5 minutes because you need to download it, but it's one command. And then you can install tools just with cargo install. So it's really simple. It's not complicated. The only thing with cargo install on our systems, as I have noted, do it on the cluster front end, because when you do it like on CSNHR on some more modern Ubuntu node host, then it will link against the new glibc, which is not backward compatible. No.
It does work the other way around.
It works the other way around. Therefore, install the tool on the cluster front end, like on Fritz, and then it will work everywhere. So it's really not a problem. Yes, you have to invest the effort one time, but I think it's worth it. And you can pick. You can use all the tools I have shown across platform. You can use all of that also in Bash. You don't need to use Fish. So it's really, you can pick what suits you best and mix it. LazyGit works in any shell.